Hey everybody, the Book Dad here. Welcome back to the channel, and welcome to my all-time top 10 favorite science fiction books of all time. That's right, we're doing a top 10 ranking video today. And on this list of my favorite science fiction books of all time, you'll find a few tried and true science fiction books that everybody knows about. And you might see a couple of newbies on there that don't make it onto very many top 10 lists. And also on this list, you'll find out that the Book Dad likes nothing better than the techno thriller. That's right, you'll see quite a few of those pop up here in a few minutes, so get ready. Now, before we get started, a little bit of background on the Book Dad's reading habits when it comes to science fiction. I have always been a little bit more of a fantasy reader than sci-fi, but I love science fiction. Ever since I was a young kid, when I very first started reading science fiction, it has captured my imagination. But it just over the years, I tend to have read a little bit more fantasy. I'm a little more well-read in fantasy. So in science fiction, I haven't read some of the all-time heavy hitters. And so now, just to get this out of the way, on this list, you will not see Dune. I haven't read it yet. I got it right here. It's on the bookshelf. I plan on reading it next year. I'm definitely getting to it, but I just haven't read it yet. Also, you won't find Hyperion by Dan Simmons. It looks awesome. I also have it right here on the shelf. It's primed and loaded, locked and ready to be read. It just hasn't happened yet, but I'll get to it very quickly. Another series that I am very interested in, but it's a big series. It's a 10-book series, and every single one of them is very thick. That is the Expanse series. And I haven't gotten to it yet, but it is on my Amazon wish list, so hey, for Christmas, maybe somebody that's listening can buy that for me. But yeah, I'm very interested in getting to that series. It looks awesome. I don't know if it's more of a Star Wars-y kind of space opera feel to it, or if it's a little more hard sci-fi. Not sure, but it looks great, and I will definitely get to it eventually. Also, Red Rising, another one that is coming up quickly on my TBR. I've got the first book up there. I'm ready to read it. I just haven't started yet. And again, I don't know if that one's a little like a kind of like The Expanse, if it's more of a space opera feel to it, or if it's more sci-fi. I'm not sure, more adventure-y, but it looks awesome. Obviously everybody loves it, everybody's talking about it. I'm definitely going to get to it soon. And then The Three-Body Problem is another series, award-winning, Hugo award-winning, that looks amazing. A lot of people on booktube have talked about it, and I'm very interested in it, but again, just haven't had time. And finally, the Children of Time series by Adrian Tchaikovsky. Another one that's right there behind me on the shelf and is ready to go. Just haven't gotten to it yet. So I just share all of this so that you know that I am aware of a lot of books that are out there that I just haven't gotten to at this point. But I will. And I love science fiction, and I definitely need to be more well-read in the genre. And so that's one of the things that I'm currently working on, along with the million other books that I want to read. We can't get enough of books. There's too many out there, and you got to prioritize. And anyways, those are the books in the sci-fi genre that are prioritized for me that I will be getting to in the next 6 months to a year. Okay, and now on to my list with a few honorable mentions to start out with. Now, the first book that did not quite make my top 10, but I think is definitely worth mentioning, is 1984 by George Orwell. I love this book. And this book, frankly, is amazing. If you haven't read this book, read it. This book was written in 1949, if you can believe it. And it was just as pointed back then as it is today. It was just as big of a criticism of totalitarianism, authoritarianism, fascism, communism, all of these isms that were existing back then, and with the rise of the Soviet Union and communism and the beginnings of the Cold War, post-World War II. These are the things that George Orwell who was a British citizen, was seeing and trying to write about and warn the population about through his very satirical and pointed criticism. Now, I say that this was very sharp and biting in 1949. It hasn't lost any of that, which I suppose is more of a condemnation of the human species in general, that in 2025, it's still just as sharp of criticism against us today as it was back then in 1949. Some things just don't change. Human nature continues on, and we still fall for some of the same bad ideologies that we did back then, or that some people did back then. So 1984, excellent book, all about the dangers of government and the control that they can affect on a population, on civilians, changing history, getting people to believe what they want them to believe. Just, it's basically timeless. 1984 is evergreen, and each generation should read it and try their best to learn from it. So, great book, just didn't quite make the top 10 list for me. Now, the next two honorable mentions that I want to talk about are two books that I read from a long time ago that I haven't gone back to, and so they're a little fuzzy in my memory, but I just remember really liking them at the time, and I wanted to mention them here. The first of those is Starship Troopers by Robert Heinlein, and I read this back in my early 20s, and this book was one of the first kind of military science fiction books that I ever read. And there was obviously a famous movie made about it, which is really nothing like the book. But the book, I feel like it focused more on the military aspect of this war between humans and these alien bugs. And it talked a lot about the technology and like the robotic suits that they used. There was also a lot of political talk about becoming a citizen and what that means, what your rights are as a citizen, and what your duties and responsibilities should be with regard to serving your country. And so I thought it was really fascinating to read this book, and I really enjoyed it, but right now it's hard for me to remember a lot about it because it was so long ago. And so it's one that I'm definitely interested in coming back to eventually. And the other book was I read even longer ago than that, and this might be the very first science fiction book that I ever read. And this was when I was in probably 5th or 6th grade. I think I was somewhere between the ages of 10 and 12 when I read this book for the first time. I remember specifically finding it in my school library. And this is The Martian Chronicles by Ray Bradbury. And I was fascinated also by this book. It was the first book I had read where it talked about Mars and the whole idea of Martian. And it was a series of short stories that were kind of loosely interconnected and based on people, future civilizations that live on Mars and different aspects of that. And again, this is very fuzzy, very hard for me to remember because it was so long ago and I haven't read it since. But I still to this day remember this feeling that I had as a young boy reading something new for the first time, coming across new ideas for the first time. And that's what really science fiction does for us. It gives us these mind-expanding opportunities as we read to learn about possibilities of the human race, where we can go, where we can expand to with our technology through space and interstellar travel, and all of these various scientific principles that maybe we haven't thought about and how those could apply in the future. And so The Martian Chronicles was kind of my first experience with something like that. So it was very cool. And finally, my last honorable mention that I'll talk about is a little more of a popular popcorn kind of light read, but I really loved it. It was a lot of fun, and that's Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. And this was a book that I read, probably 3 or 4 years ago, and I had a lot of fun with it. And this book is classified as science fiction, but again, it's not super hardcore with the science aspect of it, but it is pretty cool in imagining this idea of an online universe that one can plug into and live in. And basically, the society is kind of this dystopian, near future society that has been given this online platform where they can go not only to learn and to do school, but to play games and to watch movies and to like do basically everything. Their entire lives are essentially lived online. Kind of sounds familiar, right? And so, but the most fun, the key to Ready Player One is having an extensive 1980s pop culture library to reference within your mind, because that's what it's all about. It's all about making all kinds of references to 1980s music, movies, video games, TV shows, all of it. And that's when I grew up, was in the 80s. And so I loved that aspect of it. It was a lot of fun. It even got a little more into the minutia than even I know about, because, you know, when it would talk about computer video games from the 1980s that were like things I've never even heard of. That the other aspect of Ready Player One is it's just a big Easter egg hunt. It's like this quest where the characters are trying to find the next egg, the next gate, and you're going along with them on this hunt, on this quest. And so it's very driven, you know. It makes you want to keep reading and keep going and getting all the way to the end and finding out who wins the contest. And so a lot of fun, but just didn't quite have what it takes to get onto the list. Now, what did have what it takes? Well, let's get it on right now. Number 10 of my top 10 all-time favorite science fiction books is The Martian by Andy Weir. Now, this book I read a couple of years ago when I was traveling and was at my parents' house, and they happened to have it on one of their shelves. And I'd heard of it. I believe this was before the movie came out, or it might have been right around the same time that the movie was coming out. And I still haven't seen the movie yet, so let me know if it's good. I don't know. I should probably go watch it at some point. But the book, I found this book on their shelf, and that looked like a good choice. So I picked it up, and right from like the first line, if you've read it, it hooked me in. I'm like, okay, here we go. What is going on with this? And it did not disappoint all the way through. The Martian is all about an astronaut, a team of astronauts that go to Mars that are going to complete a mission and do research. And they've got all of this infrastructure built up, these buildings and space pods and various things set up before they got there to prepare for, I don't know, I can't remember what it was, a year-long research trip or something like that. But an extended period of time that they were going to be on Mars doing research, doing scientific studies and research there, and something goes wrong. They have to evacuate. Something unexpected comes up, and somebody gets left behind. They think he's dead. They don't know what happened to him. They have to leave. It's one of those, crazy things that comes up. And so they leave. They're on their way back to Earth, and the lone astronaut is left behind. He is the lone man on Mars. He is the Martian. And from that point, it's a matter of this guy trying to problem solve his way through survival on an alien, harsh planet. And it's very gripping as to the types of things that happen to this poor guy. Like, I swear, everything that can go wrong seems like it does go wrong at some point. But he's got to figure out, right? He's got to figure out how to survive. Now, he's a scientist, and so he knows how to critically think about things, and he knows how to solve problems, but he doesn't know how to solve all of the problems of this space station on Mars. And so, he has to figure it out. And it's fascinating to watch how he puzzles his way through things, putting things together, rearranging things, coming up with unique solutions, and somehow survives there. And then he's got to figure out, well, how do I get off of here now? How do I contact Earth to get them to come back and pick me up and get me off of Mars and get back to Earth? And it's crazy. And so, eventually Earth finds out, oh shoot, we left this guy behind. He's still there. He's alive. And so it was a lot of fun, a lot of adventure, a lot of scientific thinking and problem solving. And so that's why The Martian is number 10 on my all-time top 10 list. On to number 9. And number 9 on this list is the first appearance of the techno thriller in this top 10 list, a subgenre of science fiction that I love. And this guy is one of the best at it. Almost the best, but you'll see who the best is in a second. Now, this is Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. I love this book. I love all these books. These are all great books. That's why they're my top 10. But Dark Matter was so awesome. Blake Crouch has a way of writing about technological things, mind-bending things, and also adding the human family element to his stories. So it's a combination of a lot of different things. Now, Dark Matter is about a physics professor who lives in Chicago and one night finds himself abducted. And when he wakes up, he is surrounded by people in hazmat suits and is basically said like, hey, welcome back. And he's like, what is going on? Where am I? I don't recognize these people. And yet they recognize him. And so now he finds himself in a reality where he is no longer married to the wife that he loves. His child wasn't born. It's almost as if he's in a completely different reality. Now, how did he get there? He has no idea. He doesn't understand what's going on, and he has to figure it out and find out what's real. And the thing about Dark Matter, I don't want to tell you too much about it because it is so crazy what happens, and it is awesome. This book is best taken on without any knowledge as to what's going to happen, and so I don't want to spoil anything that comes up in this book, but it gives you such interesting ideas. And this is the thing that I love about Blake Crouch. Every time I read one of his books, and his books are of varying quality, some are better than others, but without fail, every time I read a Blake Crouch book, it gives me something to really think about. It causes me to think about it for days, weeks, months afterwards. The ideas that he plants in your head. And this is one of the great aspects of science fiction. It gives you new ideas. Now, of course, Blake Crouch uses science in a very crazy and futuristic way to bring about the plot action that happens in his books. But the idea, especially in Dark Matter, of the choices that we make in life and what that leads to, and if one choice takes me down this path, will another choice take me down this other way? And then what happens to the potential choice that I could have made? And every time we make a different choice, what then happens? And this is the crux of the issue with Dark Matter, and I won't get any further into it, but it provides some amazing action. It surprised me where it went, and it gave me so much interesting food for thought. And the other thing is, I read this book in less than 2 days. It is that thrilling. So when I say techno thriller, yeah, Blake Crouch, he gets the thriller part of it down. And I couldn't stop reading this book. It's a short book. I'm pretty sure it's less than 400 pages. But I could not stop reading this thing. You might want to read it again as soon as you finish. It's that fun and exciting. And then once you know how it ends, then it's one of those books where you can go back to the beginning, and now some certain things take on a different meaning now that you know what everything is going to happen. So yeah, Blake Crouch, Dark Matter, excellent book, excellent techno thriller, number 9 on this list. Okay, now on to number 8. And number 8 is an author who I just discovered about 2 years ago, and he has gotten a lot more famous recently, has even won a Hugo, and this is John Scalzi, and the book is Old Man's War, which is the first book in a series, and at the time I didn't realize that it was a series, and I haven't continued on with it yet, but I've just read that first book, but it was awesome. Old Man's War talks about a futuristic time period on Earth when we are battling many different alien species across the galaxy. The galaxy is basically in constant warfare, and the authorities that are running that war are in need of soldiers. And just like any war, generally you're looking for the young men to go out and fight this thing. But in this reality, the authorities that are trying to fund and build this war effort have created a technology that allows them to take the minds and experiences and basically the soul of a person and transfer it into the body of a super soldier. So what do they want? They want the most experienced people that we have, which are our senior citizens. And so they make this deal where older people above a certain age can take advantage of this program and have their minds transported into the body of these super soldiers. So the reason that these old people take this deal is basically because just like any army contract, when you sign up for it, you have to do a certain amount of years of service. And once they complete those years of service, I think it's just 2 years in this case, then they're given a homestead of their own on a planet where they can continue to live a nice, peaceful life and in the new body that they have. And so it's attractive to them for this option. And they don't get all the details up front. They basically get a little bit of a carrot placed in front of them and said, hey, if you want to do this, you could get these things. But then they eventually find out what the reality of the situation is, and then can, I guess, decide whether or not to go through with it. But it gives them the opportunity to basically live their life again with all of the gained experience and the knowledge and all of the things that they've learned over the whole course of their lives to bring to bear in the most experienced mind in the best body. What I liked about this story so much was, of course, I enjoy the military aspect of science fiction. I like military tactics and battles, weaponry, all of that kind of stuff that can happen in a good science fiction story because of my own personal experience in the Army. So I definitely have an interest in that sort of thing from a fantastic perspective. And the other thing that was that was unexpected in this story was the heartfelt emotion and feeling behind it, because the main character, the old man of Old Man's War, it's his viewpoint that we're following, and he is basically grieving his dead wife, and he doesn't have anything else to live for on Earth, and frankly, he's up for some adventure, and he likes the idea of doing this and going out and seeing what there is to see out there in space in this war. And so he decides to join up, takes the deal, signs the contract, and then we follow him throughout his time in these defense forces that are fighting these aliens across the galaxy as Earth is basically trying to expand across the galaxy, across the universe, and find new places to live. But you find out that on some of these new places, there are other aliens that don't want us to be there. So there is sort of a colonial aspect to this. But it's very interesting, the military tactics, the techniques that are used, the way that these super soldiers fight the battles, which is futuristic and fun. And what I didn't expect, and what really gives Old Man's War a spot on this top 10 list, was I didn't expect how heartfelt it was going to be. The idea that this man who has lost his wife, that he's going out trying to find something out there in space, and what he does find is completely surprising to him and really brings a lot of heart to this story, a lot of feeling and emotion that I wasn't expecting from a military sci-fi story. And so John Scalzi does a really good job with this. And now that I've read this book, I am interested in continuing on with the series to see where it goes from here. But it was very exciting, a lot of fun, A lot of cool military futuristic stuff happening. And again, a real bit of emotion at the heart of this story that really brings it home. And that's why Old Man's War is number 8 on this list. Okay, now moving on to number 7. Number 7 on this list of all-time favorite science fiction books. Now we have arrived at the king of the techno thriller, the best to ever do it. That's right, it's Michael Crichton, one of my favorite authors of all time. And the book that's number 7 on this list is Sphere. Now, Sphere is a book that I don't think gets talked about very much when it comes to Michael Crichton. Obviously, you're hearing about all of his more famous works, but Sphere may be underrated, but it is awesome. I love Sphere. I still remember when I first read it. I think I was a senior in high school when I first came across Sphere. And it was actually right before the movie came out, which, ugh, what a dud that was. Don't see the movie. It sucks. But the book is amazing. And I had already read a few books by Michael Crichton at this point, so I was familiar with his style, but Sphere is one of his best. This book is all about an alien spacecraft that crash landed on Earth, and now people want to investigate it and see what they can discover from this. The catch? It's at the bottom of the ocean. And so they have to build this habitat on the ocean floor, and then from there take these little submarines and submersibles across to where the alien ship is, cut into it, and then discover what there is inside. And what's inside? Well, you guessed it. It's a sphere. There's basically this giant sphere hanging in the air inside of this spaceship. And what it does, we don't know. That's what we have to find out by reading this book. And Michael Crichton always does a great job taking the technical aspects of a story, like trying to live in this close quarters, confined, claustrophobic research facility under the ocean that's resting on the ocean floor. So he brings these scientists down there to research and discover what's going on with this sphere inside this alien spaceship. And they get to it. And once they get to it and they interact with it, strange things start happening. Why are these things happening? We don't know. We have to find out. But there are weird phenomena that are occurring. And has the sphere spoken to these scientists? Has it talked to some and not to others? Is it making this happen? Are aliens at play? We don't know. It's a giant mystery. And figuring it out is so much fun because Michael Crichton takes the thriller aspect of the techno thriller and makes it so tense, and it's so like scary at times, like you don't know what's going to happen. And yet there are also these scientific aspects of being under the sea and having to combat with the pressures, both literal of the ocean all around you and metaphorical of the interactions between these people there and what's happening and how they're going to get out of it. And wow, this story was so good. And I have to say, I still remember now, and it's been a long time since I read this, but the ending of Sphere, obviously I'm not going to spoil it here, but it was so mind-blowing to me at the time. I loved it so much, and it was probably the first book that I've read that had this ending that you weren't quite sure what happened, but it gave you a hint and an idea, and wow, I was just blown away. And it was so good. And it's one of those stories that, like, when you get to the end, you're like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? And there's only a few pages left, and you're like, oh, like, what are they going to do now? Like, how is this going to wrap up in such a short period of time? And so, very exciting, super fun. Like the scientific aspects of being under the ocean, all of it done perfectly by Michael Crichton. And Sphere, Can't recommend it enough. Okay, now on to number 6 of my top sci-fi books of all time. Now, number 6 is the first book of a trilogy, and this book, when it was first written, it was written as a series of short stories, basically, that then got combined together into a full book, and that's the way that it's presented now. This is Wool by Hugh Howey. Now, of course, Wool is pretty famous lately because of a very good Apple Plus TV series called Silo, which tells you the story of Wool, and perhaps later on. I haven't actually seen it, so I don't know what the TV show gets into. But Wool, the book, is great. I was recommended this by a friend of mine, and so when I first read it, I didn't quite know what to expect. I knew that this was a dystopian, futuristic type of science fiction book. And basically, what you're dealing with in this book is one of the most unique and fascinating settings for any science fiction book that I've ever read. And that is a huge silo, this giant metallic cylindrical silo that has been buried deep into the ground, like a skyscraper into the ground. And that is where an entire civilization of people live in a post-nuclear, post-apocalyptic landscape. Now, the idea here is that the outside world is uninhabitable. Anybody that goes out into the outside world will die within a few minutes. And so everybody that has to stay inside this silo is safe from the outside air and contamination that exists, but are they safe from other forces and things that are going on inside the silo? That's one of the things that we find out in this book. And it's so cool, the setting of this book, because like I said, it's basically like a skyscraper buried in the ground. And I can't remember how many stories it is, but it's like 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 stories, something like that, from the top all the way to the bottom. And it basically has, you know, a series of stairways that go all the way down to the very bottom of this silo. And society in this future is stratified into these various sections of whether, you know, depending on how high or how low you are in the silo itself. So it's really cool, a really cool idea, and a very unique idea that I've never seen anywhere else. I really liked it. And that one of the interesting things about this book is that it opens with a section, almost an extended prologue, that gives you a totally self-contained story that introduces you to the world and gives you some intrigue and some mystery, and then it ends basically, and then it moves on to another story that happens later on. And so I think part of that is because of the aspect that this was originally written as a series of shorter stories and was collected into this omnibus edition that is now just called Wool. I think originally it was called Wool Omnibus. Now it takes that and basically uses it as a prologue and then continues on with other characters later on in the story. And so it's really cool the way that it does that, I thought. Maybe, I don't know if that turns some people off from it. You know, that you thought you were going one direction and then it kind of switches to another direction. But the whole idea of trying to solve a mystery within this silo, within this society that exists within this silo, is really cool. And you're following this character that is starting to learn things about what is really going on in this future and how they got there, and whether, like, is the outside really actually poisonous and contaminated? It sure seems that way, but it's a mystery. And so there are a lot of really cool, mysterious aspects within this story that you learn as you go through it. And as you begin to learn some of the secrets of the silo, like who's really in charge, and are they alone? Are there other people? Like, lots of things to find out in this crazy futuristic world. And it was a lot of fun to read. And of course, this is the first book of a trilogy. And in the trilogy, the second book is Shift, the third is Dust. Shift is more of a prelude to Silo, or excuse me, not Silo, is a prelude to Wool, and it's okay. It's not as good because it does give you a prelude, and it kind of tells the story of how humanity got into the silo in the first place. And so it's all right. But then Dust goes back and picks up pretty much where Wool left off, and then that continues the story and concludes it. And it's a good conclusion. Because Wool ends, and you're like, holy crap, what is going to happen now? It really leaves you on a big cliffhanger. And so, very exciting, a lot of fun, a unique setting that I've not experienced in any other science fiction. And so for that, I loved it. And that's why it's the number 6 book on my all-time top science fiction list. Right, on to the top 5 of my all-time sci-fi book list. But before we get to number 5, welcome to all of those that are here for the first time. I appreciate you coming, and I hope you're enjoying this list of top 10 science fiction books. But there is also more content out there for you on the Book Dad. So do me a favor and subscribe. That way you can get all of my great content. That are other videos like my top 10 fantasy books of all time, or any of the book reviews that I've done lately. There's a lot of good content out there, so please like and subscribe. And we're happy to have you here, and I hope you continue to enjoy the rest of this list. Now, number 5 is an excellent sci-fi book, a bona fide sci-fi book. When you think of science fiction, this is one of the classics that comes up every time. And it is one of the few authors that has won back-to-back Hugo and Nebula Awards for his works, for the first and second books in a series. This is the second book in the series. That's right, we're talking about Orson Scott Card, Speaker for the Dead. This book was so great. Oh man, I love Orson Scott Card. Perhaps we might see more of him later on in this list. Who knows? But Speaker for the Dead, it was such a great sequel to Ender's Game. It totally took things into a new and different place. And if you've heard Orson Scott Card talk about it, what he says is that the story of Speaker for the Dead was really the main story that he was trying to tell with his Ender saga. And that Ender's Game was really only a prequel written to get you up to speed up to that point. But you could really start with Speaker for the Dead and not really miss very much of anything. Because Speaker for the Dead basically takes place 3,000 years after Ender's Game, and tells the story of human civilization in the universe who has encountered a new alien species. Now, the first alien species that the human race encountered happened in the first book, Ender's Game, and that did not end very well for the aliens, as we know. And so the human race, now that they've discovered a second alien species on a planet, want to take better care of them. But in the process of doing that, we discover that alien races are exactly that, alien. We don't know necessarily what it is that they're thinking, what certain things mean to them. This comes about because something tragic happens between the humans and this new alien race known as the Piggies. And we have to discover why certain things happened and what that means and whether or not there is danger in this. And this was a very cerebral take on science fiction, a very thought-provoking story. And in this book, we're dealing with Ender now as an adult, and he has to take his experiences from his youth with an alien race and try to use that to try and see if the differences and the dangers that exist between humans and these piggies can be resolved, and whether both can be saved, and whether a different outcome can happen than what happened previously in his life. And this book was so good. It's very, very different from Ender's Game. has a lot more character development, a lot more interesting characterization. It gets a lot more into a little weightier, thought-provoking science fiction issues, like what is an alien race? How do aliens think? Why do they not think like us? All of this sort of stuff is what makes it fascinating to think about, and it's something that sticks with you for a while. Now, there may not be as much action and adventure per se in Speaker for the Dead, but the ideas that are talked about and discussed I found to be just as fun and exciting as the action from Ender's Game. And that's why Speaker for the Dead is number 5 on my all-time science fiction list. Now, coming in at number 42, don't panic, it's The Hitchhiker's Guide for the Galaxy by Douglas Adams. Number 4 on the list. I love Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. This book is hilarious. It is so good. Douglas Adams is one of the funniest, most clever writers in science fiction and in modern sci-fi fantasy literature, period. He's very similar to Terry Pratchett. There's something about those English guys, right? That they just have this witty, clever sense of humor that permeates their writing. And Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, first book in the increasingly inaccurately named Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy trilogy, which ended up with 5 books, was one of the jokes on the covers from back in the day. I love this book. This basically it's been done so many times now. There was obviously, you have the original novel. There was like a radio play. There was a TV show that was made of it, like way old British TV show. There's obviously a newer movie, although now it's not new anymore. It seems like it was new, but it was probably like 20 years old at this point. And all kinds of various things that have come out with the Hitchhiker's Guide name attached to them. But this original book, so good. I read this when I was probably in my early 20s for the first time, and I've read it several times since then. And it's basically the story of a man who wakes up one day to find that a construction crew is trying to push his house down to make way for a bypass, a highway through that part of England. And he did not realize that this was happening. And so he goes to stand and he goes outside to lie down in front of the bulldozers so they can't bulldoze his house. And ironically, at the same time, aliens from outer space are trying to bulldoze the planet Earth to make way for an interstellar bypass. And so, hilarious setup. And at the same time, Arthur, who is the main character, Arthur Dent, finds out that his best friend, Ford Prefect, happens to be an alien and is not from Earth. And so that he is able to take Arthur and they hitchhike a ride in space to get off of Earth right before the entire planet is destroyed. And then their adventures continue from there as they go throughout the galaxy and have all kinds of crazy, hilarious adventures with alien races, with robots, with new spaceships, new planets. It goes all over the place and is also used as a commentary, not just on humans, but on society in general, on the things that are idiosyncratic to the human race. And Douglas Adams finds a way in this science fiction to comment on that in the most hilarious ways possible. And throughout all of it, you have the actual Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which is a actual encyclopedia within the book that is referenced from time to time with hilarious entries on various alien species, on food and drink, on all kinds of things. And it's just another way to add more humor into the story. And at this point, I don't normally do this, but I'd really like to share a short excerpt from The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. What really made me love this book. I was reading this as a young man, and I got to this passage and it made me laugh out loud so hard. And at that point, I knew I had a gem. So basically, and it was at the very beginning of the book, right? And so I grabbed my copy off the shelf here. So I have it here. And this is when Arthur is laying down in front of the bulldozer so that they can't take his house down. And he's talking to one of the construction workers there about the construction workers like, well, we've had the plans to do this, filed away in our office for, 9 months or whatever. So let me just read this brief part to you. And you can see why this book is so hilarious, right? It says, "Oh, yes. Well, as soon as I heard, I went straight round to see them yesterday afternoon. You hadn't exactly gone out of your way to call attention to them, had you? I mean, like actually telling anybody or anything? But the plans were on display." "On display? I eventually had to go down to the cellar to find them." "That's the display department." "With a flashlight." "Ah, well, the lights had probably gone." "So had the stairs." "But look, you found the notice, didn't you?" "Yes," said Arthur. "Yes, I did. It was on display in the bottom of a locked filing cabinet stuck in a disused lavatory with a sign on the door saying, 'Beware of the leopard.'" I loved that passage so much. Beware of the leopard. Like, oh my gosh. I still remember my experience reading that. It was so funny. But I love this book. I love the whole series. It gets kind of crazy and weird as it gets further on into the series, into like So Long and Thanks for All the Fish and Mostly Harmless. But a great series. A must read for everybody. If you haven't read The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, start it, and I guarantee you, you'll have a great time. And that's why it's number 42. Get it? And that's why it's number 4 on my list of all-time science fiction books. All right, on to number 3 of my all-time top 10 favorite science fiction books. And this is the first time that an author has repeated on this list. That's right. We're going back to the techno thriller, one of my favorite subgenres, and this time with Blake Crouch's Recursion. This book is so good. I know I'm saying that for all of these books, but what do you expect? It's a top 10 list. I love all of them. Recursion is my favorite Blake Crouch book, and it is no contest. It is so good. When it comes to Blake Crouch, the first books that I read by him were his Wayward Pines series. And after that, I read Recursion, and then Dark Matter, and then Upgrade. And Recursion, I mean, I love Dark Matter. Obviously, it has its place on this list, but Recursion blows them all out of the water. I was blown away by Recursion. It was so good. This book was mind-bending. What Blake Crouch does, just like he did with Dark Matter, is he takes this idea of futuristic technology that has good intentions but creates a massive, huge, disastrous problem that has to be fixed and fought against. What happens in Recursion is you have this New York City cop who begins to investigate this phenomenon that's happening to several people in his area, and he's asked to go investigate it. And what happens is he finds people who feel like they have these memories that aren't real. Like they're going crazy. They've got these memories of things that never happened to them, and they don't know how they got there, and they don't know why they think that way. And it begins to occur all over the country, and to the point where it has a name given to it, which is false memory syndrome. And this cop is one of the first people to discover this idea, this phenomenon that's happening to all these people, where they might have memories like that they were married to somebody else and had a whole other family and lived in another place or had another job, and that everything that they're experiencing now is not real, but that their memories that they have, which they think are false, are the real reality for them. And it's a little bit confusing, but it's really crazy. And at the same time, you have this neuroscientist who's working on this project that also has to do with memory, and the idea that you can bring back memories of your most favorite and most beloved times that occurred in your life, like when a child was born, when you were married, other momentous things from your life. This technology that will bring those memories back in full force into your mind. But of course, while there are good intentions with this scientific research and this technology that's being developed, of course, things escape and get out of control and starts this chain of events that could bring about basically the end of the world. And I won't spoil what happens or what goes on, because again, just like dark matter, recursion is best read without any foreknowledge. And just trust me, trust the book, Dad, that I know what I'm talking about when it comes to recursion. It is one heck of a ride. And you go from the beginning not knowing what's happening till you get to a point where, oh, okay, yeah, I think I get it. I can see where this is going. And then boom, Blake Crouch drops the floor out from underneath you and everything totally changes. And it just, every time it happens, you're just like, whoa, it opens your mind to this whole other aspect that you had no idea was going on. And it is so, so cool. And you will not believe the stakes that happen by the end of this story. What's happening? It again, with Blake Crouch, he brings about these scenarios that cause you to think so much about the potential and the possibilities as to what if this technology were real, and what are our memories? Are our memories real? Are they fake? Can they be tricked? Can they be changed? How much can we trust our memories, and can they be altered in any way? The whole idea, like, real, once you find out what the story is and where it goes and the things that happen as a result of this technology, it makes you think so much about, wow, I never even considered the possibilities of something like this. And I know this probably sounds weird coming from a science fiction list and talking about science fiction books, but honestly, Blake Crouch is one of the authors that has caused me to think most often and most deeply of any other popular fiction writer about religion and about how God works and how things really are. And it's weird to think that, that this sci-fi techno thriller author could cause me to think differently about my religion, but it really does. It really brings about a lot of points that I'm like, oh, I wonder if this is really how God works through things like this. Like if this is how reality is shaped. Like, it brings about a lot of really interesting things to think about. And for that reason, recursion, I'm not going to tell you more about it. Just read it. It's awesome. Another book that I read in less than 2 days because I could not put it down. I couldn't stop reading. It was too exciting. So Blake Crouch, recursion, number 3 all time on my list of top 10 science fiction books. All right, we're getting close to the end here, everybody. We only got 2 books left. And the number 2 book of all time on my favorite science fiction list, another repeat author. And while we just had Blake Crouch, who has taken the crown of techno thriller, the only reason this guy doesn't still have it is because, unfortunately, he passed away. And that is Michael Crichton, the king of the techno thriller. He's back. And this time, it's his most famous book of all time, and that is Jurassic Park. There have been a ton of crappy movies made about this book, but the book, Jurassic Park, is the best Michael Crichton story that is out there. I love Jurassic Park. I came across this book back in the 90s after I had seen the original movie. Now, the original Jurassic Park, I love the movie. It's a great movie. And I saw it, was blown away, and then realized, oh, this is a movie made of a book. Huh, let's check out the book. And so I went and found the book, bought it at my local mall bookstore. I think it was a Walden Books. Those don't exist anymore. Back in the day, the old Walden Books, my favorite hangout. And found Jurassic Park by Michael Crichton, read it, and was like, where did this movie come from? The book is completely different than the movie, Jurassic Park. And so I loved both the book and the movie, but the book is amazing. And this book was, like I said, totally different. Characters were completely different. The kids, instead of in the movie, you've got the girl as the older one and the boy as the younger. In the book, that's flipped. The boy is the older kid and the girl is the younger one. You have characterizations in the movie, like Dr. Grant doesn't like children, and he has to like go through this character arc to the point where he saves the children, and then he likes children by the end. In the book, he loves children. Like, paleontologists love kids because they love dinosaurs. So they both love the same thing. So Dr. Grant was like kind of this dowdy, frumpy, kind of middle-aged guy in the book who loved kids. And so, and probably the biggest change from movie to book, you have John Hammond, the creator of Jurassic Park, who in the movie is sort of like this old, kind, maybe misguided, but ultimately kind, good grandpa who loves his grandkids and is like this kind of Walt Disney figure. In the book, he is straight evil. Like, he is conniving. Like, he is like the complete opposite of his movie characterization. And the fate of certain characters is completely different from movie to book. So what I'm saying by highlighting all of these differences is, if you've seen the movie, you don't know what's in the book. So read the book. It's awesome. It's completely different, and it has all kinds of great action in it as well. A couple things are similar. I mean, really the only thing that's similar is the fact that there's a place called Jurassic Park that has dinosaurs on it and the names of the characters. And beyond that, everything else is pretty much different. And so you get all kinds of new action with the T-Rex and with pterodactyls and all kinds of stuff. You get all kinds of great dinosaur action in Jurassic Park, the book. And you get what is the hallmark of Michael Crichton techno thrillers, which is the idea which Blake Crouch has now perfected in his writing, the idea of technology gone awry, about unintended consequences. What happens when you have scientific research that outpaces your morality? These are the questions that Michael Crichton tackles in Jurassic Park and in all of his books, frankly. And they're fascinating to think about. They're so interesting to consider what happens when, just like Malcolm in the movie says, when you can do something, but should you do that thing, right? And so the idea of chaos theory, and when you do one thing, you don't understand what effects downline that can have. And so the book really delves into what happens when you have this new and untested technology and what can come from that. You think that you can control nature. You think that you can control, that science has the power and the ability to control nature. And then you realize that nature is undefeated. And the dinosaurs, they get out and they start wreaking havoc. And then it's just a great adventure story. You have a lot of tense, very scary moments. That's the whole point of a techno thriller. Like, the thriller aspect of it is on point, and frankly, nobody does it better than Michael Crichton. And we're all sorry that he left us so soon. It was such a sad moment when he died that we weren't going to get any more Michael Crichton books. But at least we have what he left us with, and Jurassic Park is the best of those. And that's why it's number 2 on my all-time top 10 science fiction list. All right, everybody, you've been with me from number 10 all the way down now to number 1. And if you've been paying attention, you already know what this one is going to be, because we've seen this author before. We've seen this series before. That's right, we're going back to the Enderverse with Orson Scott Card for my favorite sci-fi book of all time, which is Ender's Game. This book is so good. Oh man, I love this book. I read this back when I was in my early 20s. Like I said before, Orson Scott Card has said that this book was basically a prequel that he wrote to explain how they got to where they were in Speaker for the Dead, which was the big story that he wanted to tell. But for me, this book is awesome. It's the first Orson Scott Card book that I ever read, and I didn't know anything about it going into it. I didn't know what it was about. But what this book is about is Earth is under attack from an alien species known as the buggers. They have been at war with these aliens for 100 years and have already been attacked multiple times on Earth and are beginning to worry that the end might be nigh. And they don't know what they're going to do. They are not gaining any ground against these buggers. They seem to be able to predict all of their moves. There doesn't seem to be anybody that's gaining any ground against them. And so the government puts their last-ditch efforts into this new training program where they are trying to build up young geniuses into the generals and the leaders that they need to destroy these aliens and finally save humanity. And one of these young boys in this program is Ender Wiggins, who has basically been created for this purpose. Both he and his siblings were potential trainees in this government program, but his older brother, they found, was too violent for it, and his sister was not violent enough for it. And so they continue to be geniuses and are growing up, and they take different roles in the society, but Ender is the perfect candidate for this training program. And so he gets whisked away off of Earth into this orbiting space station that is basically this war school that is training all of these potential students to be the general that can defeat the buggers in the end. And so he's going through this program and he's being trained up in different military tactics and techniques and strategies. He's going to classes, but the key pinnacle point of this training program is the battles that they fight. They have this battle room that is a zero gravity environment where all of the groups, all of the people are put into these different teams, and they come out and then fight each other, flying through this three-dimensional environment that has various obstacles placed around it, and they have these laser guns that they use to immobilize their opponents, and whoever ends up that at the end, the one who took out everybody else is the winner, and they keep track of it on this board, and like which team is ahead, who's in first place, who's in last place, and all of that. And it's really exciting. It's really fun to see the different strategies that Ender comes up with. And he's one of the youngest there, if not the, well, I think he might be the second youngest. Maybe Bean is the youngest, I think. But Ender is like one of the youngest kids there, and he comes up with these incredibly brilliant strategies. And so his team rockets up the charts. And it's really fun to see like what he comes up with, the different things that he uses in this three-dimensional environment where they have to learn how to think in space, right? Because these battles with the buggers are taking place in outer space where somebody could be coming above, below, to the left, to the right, behind you, like from any direction. And so they have to get rid of their two-dimensional Earth thinking and get put into this three-dimensional environment of outer space. And so it's really cool how this story progresses from Ender at the beginning and where he gets to at the end of the story. And also his siblings, like his brother, is basically trying to become a political force on Earth, to rule as a president or a leader in the political sphere. And his sister is from behind the scenes writing all of these essays that are meant to sway public opinion from one issue to another the way that she wants to manipulate them. And so she's kind of this puppet master behind the scenes. And it's each of them are brilliant in their own way. But the story is basically told through Ender and the experiences that he's having, how he has to defend himself against these other boys in this war school, and how he gains companions over to his side and convinces them that he is the leader that everybody needs. So it's really cool to see how all of that plays out in the battle school, and how they're getting him ready for this moment in the training that is the pinnacle of all of the things that they're preparing him for. And I don't know, maybe a lot of people see it coming ahead of time. I don't know. I didn't. It was a surprise to me when I read it, but it's super cool, the ending of this book, what happens, how it takes place. And even if you can see it coming, the twist, it's still really awesome, like how everything is planned up to this certain point. And it's really cool to see that progression. And this book is so exciting. There's so much adventure. It has all of these issues that it makes you think about, like, is it right for us to be attacking these aliens? Why are they attacking us? Like, how do we understand an alien culture, an alien civilization? And a lot of those things are heavier sci-fi concepts that go into Speaker for the Dead and continuing on in the series. How do we deal with something that's truly alien? How do we interact with them or communicate with them, or how to find out what it is that motivates them? And that's one of the things that Ender has to struggle with and think about throughout this book. And one of the other really cool aspects of this book, and about much of science fiction, is the technology that's used in this book. This book was written back in the early 80s by Orson Scott Card. And this was before, obviously, the internet, before tablets and smart devices and touch screens. None of that existed yet, but all of that is in some form or another in this book. And so Orson Scott Card could see either a potential future where things like this existed, or just came up with this really cool technology that then was copied in the real world eventually. And that's one of the cool things about science fiction, where you see certain technologies like in old Star Trek TV shows that then become reality in our present day. And so I really like that about science fiction, where you can read about potential things that might come to pass in the future. And Ender's Game is just a really great book. It's super short, so it's a very quick read. It moves very fast, lightning fast, and it's a lot of fun going through the battle school environment, seeing things from Ender's perspective, and then also getting the perspective of the leaders of the battle school and what it is that they're worried about. Because for Ender and the other boys, it seems to be just a game. But for the adults that are there, that are training them, they know that there is a real war going on out there, and they're worried about their survival and about humanity's survival. And so you kind of see both perspectives, and it's just very well written. It was awarded the Hugo Award for Best Novel, and both Ender's Game and Speaker for the Dead, back-to-back Hugo Award winners, which I believe at the time was the first time that had happened for an author. It since has happened again, but just goes to show what a great book Ender's Game is. It's my favorite science fiction book of all time, and if you haven't read it, hey, go get it now and read it. You will not regret it. It is awesome. So my #1 science fiction book of all time. And that's the list, everybody. Hey, thanks for being here. Thanks for sticking with me through to the end. I hope you enjoyed the list. Let me know in the comments. What did you think? Are any of these also your favorite science fiction books? If not, let me know. What do you think are the best sci-fi books out there? What are your top 5? I'd love to hear, because every time you guys comment about the books that you love, I get to find out new books maybe that I haven't heard of before that I can add to my TBR, which is never ending. But hey, that's what we love about books here on BookTube, right? Is getting all the new recommendations and finding new books to love. So let me know in the comments what you thought. If you're new here to the channel, again, thank you for sticking around. Thank you for watching. And hey, hit that subscribe button. It will help me out a lot and help grow this channel, and I would really appreciate it. I really love all of you that are here as subscribers, and I hope to gain many more and be able to share my love of books and science fiction with all of you and with many more in the future. So please subscribe, like the video, comment, hit that bell, and we'll continue to grow here at the Book Dad and continue to talk about all of the great books that I love. So until next time, remember everybody, keep reading to your kids every night, and I'll see you around.